We're just waiting for that door to close. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to our June 21st, 2016 special meeting for the Board of Supervisors, Calaveras County. Please stand before the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this time, I'll ask the board if they have any announcements to make this morning. Any announcements from the board?
I just would like to relate to everybody. There's been a lot of activity on social media over the last few months. We have obviously dealt with an asphalt plant application at the Hogan Quarry near Valley Springs. Over the weekend, that equipment was picked up and moved to another location in the county.
One thing. Sure. Yeah, with that information, I understand that's going to be on our side of the county. That's going to provide some jobs for District 3 and District 4 people, and I'm pretty happy about that. I understand we meet all the EPA requirements so far, so that's exciting for our job opportunities. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments, sir? All right, so we'll move on to public comments. Public comments will be 30 minutes. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30 minutes allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the regular agenda. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued to the conclusion of the consent agenda in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of the comments to be heard. So how many people plan on doing public comment that's not related to the agenda? Right, so we'll give 3 minutes for public comments. We have 30 minutes. And then if we don't finish within the 30-minute period, we'll carry it on at the end of the meeting until we are finished. Okay?
Members of the board, my name is Susan Morse, Angels Camp. Residents of your county are wondering what happened with their initiative to ban marijuana cultivation. Here's the answer. Calaveras County elections official rejected the people's initiative due to a technicality. An initiative process is the vehicle for citizens to place matters on the ballot. Administrative rules are intended to facilitate the process, not prevent it from going forward. This is the way the people participate in the legislative process. Recently, the proponent submitted a notice of intention to circulate a petition, obtained the ballot title and summary, published and prepared a petition in accordance with the county's guidelines. Over 60,000 volunteer unpaid residents gathered over 3,500 signatures. This petition was timely filed with the county elections official Rebecca Turner. In short, after jumping the hoops necessary to prepare the initiative for circulation in only 10 days, collecting over 3,500 registered voter signatures, and being twice the number required, these signatures were filed with the county a day ahead of the deadline and summarily rejected. In a meeting following our submittal, Ms. Turner reported she found we had 0 signatures because a copy of the full text of the initiative was not attached to each section of the petition when filed. Ms. Turner called it a format technicality. At this point, I told her we had followed the Calaveras County's guide for placing a county initiative on the ballot, and she said those guidelines sucked and she needed to revise them. That was confusing. I told her I had looked to other counties' initiative guidelines, which were similar to the Calaveras County's guidelines. She said, I know. I looked at the other counties as well, and they suck too. I then told her I spoke to the California Secretary of State's Election Division and asked if there were any specific state rules for county initiatives. I was told to follow the county guidelines, and each county was responsible for its local rules. It is my understanding that a copy of full text needed to accompany each section of the petition when circulated. We did that. At that point, I offered to provide a declaration under penalty of perjury from each circulator attesting that the full text was attached to the petition when circulated. Ms. Turner rejected my offer and advised we could go to court. We should go to court. She even thought we would prevail. I asked her why we had not been told the initiative text must be attached before the petition was accepted for filing. We could have easily cured the administrative deficiency by making the required number of copies of the H-page document if that was what the county required. We had plenty of time. We feel because we filed it a day early. Her answer was that she didn't know it was missing until the proponents of the regulated marijuana group came in to file their petition and told her ours did not have the full text attached. Let's be real. The reason the ordinance full text was required to accompany the petition is to afford a prospective signer the opportunity to read the full text if so desired. Ms. Turner agreed. As we were leaving, Ms. Turner told us to bring her declarations, no guarantees, but she would look at them, and besides, they could also be used in court. 4 days later, we submitted 60 declarations to her, and she summarily refused them. Based on the foregoing, I request that this board consider placing this initiative on the ballot to be voted by the people in the November election. Think about this. One election official stopped 3,500 people from having their initiative placed on the ballot based on what an elections official called a format technicality.
Thank you.
Where is the justice in this? Thank you.
I think you did extremely well.
David Tuno, Rancho Calaveras. Adding to what Susan told you, here are more of the details relating to Calaveras County's guideline manual entitled How to Qualify a County Initiative for the Ballot, a document that is in your packet. Keep in mind this is supposed to be a citizens' initiative process. Realistically, not everyone can hire lawyers for these matters, and finding out after it's too late that the county's manual should not have been followed is a deception that you can cure. The Elections Department told our people that the manual sucks, even though it was revised late last year. Key to your understanding is the fact that the California Secretary of State Elections Division told the organizers to follow the county procedures because each county has its own local rules and must be followed. The only rule in the county's manual that refers to the assembly of parts to the initiative is subtitled Circulation. It's on page 4. It cites State Code 9108, which reads in relevant part, each section of the petition shall bear a copy of the notice of intention, the title, and the summary prepared by counsel, which we did. The organizers complied with that rule, plus during the signature gathering process, they attached the full initiative to each signature page so people could read it if they wanted to. That's the purpose of the attachment, and we submitted sworn declarations that it was there during that process. There is no additional information in that manual that discusses what gets submitted to the Elections Department. There's no paragraph on that. So the organizers reasonably assumed that 9108 was still the requirement, yet when the initiative pages were turned in, they were rejected because the full text of the initiative was no longer attached. In rejecting the initiative, the department cited 2 state codes, 9108, which does not instruct one to attach the full text of the initiative when submitted, but it is mentioned in the manual, and they cited 9105C, which is in a convoluted way does say the attachment is necessary, but which is not referenced in that manual. Our organizers followed 9108, and which is in the manual, and they were rejected on 9105C, which is not. Yet there's a disclaimer in the manual that in effect says don't rely entirely on it. But that doesn't help the user who would not know where the document is deficient and where it isn't. So when the state tells the citizen to follow the county procedures, that's what they are going to do to the best of their ability. Compare our mistake with the one the other side made, where most of the signatures that they gathered were on pages without the title, without the notice of intent, and without the summary as required by 9108. If anything, a more significant problem than ours, because that requirement is clearly spelled out. Their lawyers cited a case precedent that the Elections Department of the City of Millbrae, which rejected a filing for the same reason, did not have the authority to do so. Our Elections Department accepted that as a cure. If anything, that same case would cure our problem as well.
Thank you, David.
One sentence, please. We ask that you exercise your authority to cure this mistake that occurred entirely due to a deficient county manual and place the initiative on the ballot. Thank you for your time.
So in the interest of time, what we've asked in the past is to keep the clapping and stuff down, please, so that we can move along. Thank you.
Bill McManus. So now here we are, two opposite positions and only one will prevail. In so many meetings, during multiple conversations and discussions by the board, several supervisors have indicated that the issue, marijuana, is so important to the entire county that you would prefer that the people have a chance to vote on that issue. One way or another, this issue can be settled by the people without the board having to continue its struggle to come up with an acceptable ordinance. I can assure and promise you today that if our ban ordinance is not placed on the November ballot by a vote of the board, we, the Committee to Ban Commercial Cultivation, will fire up another petition drive to have the matter placed on the ballot in early spring. Getting over 20% of the necessary signatures in 8 to 10 days was a huge effort, but accomplished with relative ease. Given 30, 60, or 90 days or more to collect roughly the same number of signatures, gathered in less than 10 days, will be a cakewalk. Of course, there will be added cost to the special election, which you can avoid spending by placing our initiative on the November ballot. When our measure is passed in early spring, the savings on the EIR will have eroded with time and thus represent more cost to the county for nothing. Is there a downside to allowing the people to decide this matter? Of course there isn't. Are there any upsides to allowing the people to decide this matter? Yes, and here is the upside. Number one, the board can fulfill its many references and promises to allow the people to choose. Number two, regardless of the outcome, approval of the ban ordinance will allow the county to save nearly $170,000 for an EIR that would no longer be required. The cost of the promised and certain special election will be avoided. That number appears to be around $30,000. You can prevent over 3,500 voters from being disenfranchised prior to the November election. So by letting the people decide this most important issue, the board does not have to wrangle with this issue as it has in the past. That's a win. The board keeps its promise to the people. That's a win.
30 seconds. And
saves the taxpayers almost $200,000. That's a win. What say you? Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Gina Gonzalez, and I live in Bar 20 in Angels Camp out in the county. 3 growers are in my neighborhood right now. I would appreciate it if you guys would consider putting the ban on the initiative and letting neighbors like mine vote on it. If you are pro, let them vote pro. If you are against it, let them vote against it. But at least let the taxpayers be the voice and support it. If you put it on the ballot, then we all have a choice, and that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Petra Kuiper. I'm a resident of Bar 20 as well, and I would like to urge the Board of Supervisors to put the initiative to ban cultivation of commercial marijuana on the ballot, just to give the people a choice to take the future of the county and not just have it decided here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Hicks, and I am from Copperopolis, and I appreciate the time. I have pulled together some consequences of marijuana growth fact sheet, which I have a couple of copies here I'd like to give you before I leave. In Willits, California, reports of an influx of homeless people who come for the harvest time have been found sleeping behind stores, going to the bathroom, and eating the food that was meant for the county poor. We had an example of that in our church a couple of Sundays ago, where a couple of the people came into our church and wanted food. In Arieta, California, the Fire Protection District Chief John McFarland says that the most local structural fires involve marijuana cultivation. Mayor Mark Wheatley states that marijuana growing has become a quality of life issue in the town of 17,000, and it has become a town of Wild West mentality. Lieutenant Michael Dingman, director of the Oregon State Police Drug Enforcement, states there are many calls from medical marijuana card holders who never receive their order, as the growers are simply using the card holders for cover and selling their crops on the black market. Deputy Chief Tim George of the Medford, Oregon Police Department says that the region is swimming in weed. Sergeant Eric Fisher of the Drug Enforcement Section of the Oregon State Police says that the perception of the marijuana drug trade is mellower than any other drug operation is wrong. He states that almost all the distributors and growers carry firearms. We can attest to that. The other striking trend has been the increase in home invasion robberies and how absolutely violent they can be. The negative impact on our environment is also important. In October 2010, the State Department of Fish and Game Wardens in California noted that the diversion of water from creeks, which deprive wildlife of its most basic need. Growers also allow chemicals to drain back into the creek, poisoning everything downstream.
25 seconds.
Officials warn residents in late summer and fall to stay out of certain stretches of water and keep their dogs out, as since 2001, 11 dogs have died from drinking out of these poisonous waters. A marked increase in narco-terrorism throughout Mexico has been driven in part by the kidnapping and forced servitude of Mexican nationals and working the illicit cultivation operations in Northern California. This information was taken from the DEA report out of Sacramento, California.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Trammell, and I live in Mountain Ranch, California. I'm here today solely to ask the Board of Supervisors to place this initiative for the ban of commercial growth of marijuana on the ballot and let the voters decide. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Trammell, Mountain Ranch resident for 17 years, and I'm here to hope that you'll consider this ban on marijuana. I have a little plot map, and I'm in red, and all the yellow around me are growers. I think one might be legal. I'm sure the rest are all illegal because they've started after the date. And I don't know what to do. We won't be able to open up our bedroom windows. It's going to be a high like I've never dreamed of in my area. And this is just the immediate area. This is not around me. This is just every property around me except one is a grower. I have no idea what to do except hopefully we can come up to an election. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dina Morris, and I'm here today representing myself and also dozens of people that could not be here today because they are working. But they did sign the initiative, and we're here to ask you today to please place our initiative on the November ballot. There's 3,500 voices out there, and this is such a huge issue that it really should be decided by the people of Calaveras County. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Bertel. I'm from Rancho Calaveras. We live on under acre properties. I am surrounded by marijuana gardens. We have lost the ability to be in our backyard or our front yard. We cannot open our windows from August through October. When we discuss this with the neighbors, too bad, they're harvesting when it's ready. I'm asking that my neighbors and I get a chance to vote on this in the November ballot so that we can take back our property rights. Thank you.
Hello, Board. I'm Monica Rose, and I'm from Mountain Ranch. I've lived here over 30 years. I have seen our neighborhood deteriorate greatly. My husband and I are small cattle farmers and ranchers, and we have seen over the last few years, and particularly in the last 3 years, a deterioration of our roads. We've had our cattle threatened. We've had our livestock abused, and we've had also our water troughs tampered with. So there are several issues we're talking about, and I urge you to put the ban initiative on the ballot. You have the power to do so and to listen to the people. We've had, so many problems I can't even begin. I'm a retired school teacher. On an emotional level, I have seen what this drug has done to teenagers, and you have to ask yourself, what kind of a community and what kind of a county do we want? What kind of quality of life do we want here? You can help our sheriffs, help our law enforcement by putting the ban on the ballot. Let them do their jobs. It's so much easier for them to do their jobs this way. Do we want a culture where teenagers feel that, this is readily accessible to us? The family culture that will be coming up will be deteriorated. Please do this. Thank you.
My name is Pamela Overacker, and I live in Mountain Ranch for 16 years with my husband and I. We lost our home last year in the Butte fire and struggled for months and months to decide whether we wanted to rebuild or leave. We decided we couldn't rebuild because our property was so damaged, but we wanted to stay with our friends. So we looked and found another home in Mountain Ranch to buy and stay. We closed 2 months ago, and we're not in the house yet. We've been living in our RV for the last 10 months, but we're almost there. And now we come to find out that 3 of our closest friends, husband and wife, are all leaving the area because their homes are completely surrounded by pot growers. And they can't live like that. These are people that have been here for 30 years, 20 years, and 3 families are leaving. And we're still here, and we have other friends, but we're losing 3 of our closest friends. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Healy. I am a mother, live in Wallace. I'm a retired police officer. And I am very concerned. I would like the board to put on the ballot and listen to the people of Calaveras County and put on our ballot the ban. Let the people decide whether or not Calaveras County should be drug dealers for the Bay Area. And let the moms and the dads at home decide what kind of county and what we want of our county. As a peace officer, I have not seen anything positive with teenagers and marijuana, or even their parents who are stoned. I've arrested numerous people driving under the influence of it, and it is not good. Right now we have a law where you have to be 21 to go and smoke a cigarette. But if you're 18 years old and you want to get stoned, you can get online for $50 and get something. It causes early onset schizophrenia and bipolar. The human mind, the brain still develops all the way up to age 24. You should put this on the ballot. Let the people decide whether or not we should be the commercial dope dealers and be Cannabis Calaveras County. As a mother, please let the people decide. the board. I'm going to watch all of you. Please let us decide. And thank you, Mike, for doing that.
Hi, my name is Jim LaGuardia. I'm going to read something that one of you said to get elected. My goal is to bring honesty and integrity to the table that will bring new levels of trust to our county leadership. Bridge gaps have caused citizens distrust in the local government. By voting for me, you will get a leader that holds a high standard of integrity and has heart and desire to work for the citizens of Calaveras County. Drug use and related crime in our county is at an all-time high. Well, growing marijuana causes that. Okay? Yeah, go ahead and laugh. You weren't exposed to what I was exposed to, okay? Let the people decide, please. I just read what somebody said to get elected. Hold your word.
Yeah, Gary Rose here. I'm up Mountain Ranch Road a bit. You guys just took a pledge, all of you, to that flag that said justice for all. Let us decide, the people, what they want. You said it to that flag. That was your promise to this country. I'm a rancher. I can't tell you how much I've had to do. I got dope pot farms all around me. Okay, I've had my windmill tampered with, destroyed. I've had my well when no cows are in there, my main well for the house, destroyed twice. I've had every stock tank tampered with, either drained or shot. I've had my cattle shot. I've had newborn calves stolen, but every newborn calf that I personally go out in any of my pastures and carry up to a pasture around my house mysteriously survives and is accounted for. This is wrong. This was an agricultural county, but not for pot. The roads have been destroyed. I've had traffic coming in and out. Doesn't matter, all times of the night. Tow trucks coming in and towing vehicles in and out at nighttime, 2 in the morning. This is not what this county is meant to be. We need to let the people decide what they want in this county. Don't push the can down the road. Thank you.
My name is Sheila Russo. I've been to several meetings in the county where people have told some of their stories, how they're afraid, a couple is afraid that both of them won't leave their house at the same time because they've had people looking in their windows. Somebody else has had a gun pulled on them and they have been threatened. Another county has had to move residents from in their county because they were threatened. He and his family were threatened in our county. All kinds of stories. I just hope you guys will put it on the ballot that these people can vote on whether or not they want to continue to have themselves, their families, and their private property threatened. Thank you.
Kaz Tomaszewski, Calaveras Cannabis Alliance. By now, you guys know that obviously we believe these concerns are valid and that the answer to these is regulation, that we do not believe a ban is enforceable. Today, we brought a small group of folks and asked that they stay seated. So we are, is that good enough? So we are staying seated for this period in the interest of time, and also because we know that you guys have heard our arguments before. We will be speaking later, but we're seating it for now. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Don Overacker, and I don't like to...
This will be the last public comment. That'll be 30 minutes, but we can continue after after the session is over today, okay?
I'm Don Overacker at Mountain Ranch. I do not like to come in front and talk to people, but there's a lot of other people in this county that are like me that are just afraid to come up and speak because nothing's going to happen. But please, let's let this initiative go through and let the people decide what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. since that's what it was about.
Before we move on to the first item of the agenda today, a lot of the comments of public comment had to deal with initiatives. One, I just wanted to advise the board that with initiatives, as you know, or not with initiatives, but with anything that comes before the board in public comment, the board cannot take action on anything that is not on the agenda. So for purposes of today, nothing can be done, no action can be taken on any item that is not on the agenda. As far as initiatives and the elections code versus any manual that the county may have. First and foremost, any initiative that is brought forward or that is sponsored by the people or the county, the election code governs. So any county-sponsored initiative and any public-sponsored initiative have to follow the election code first and foremost. That is the governing laws when it comes to initiatives. The board does not have the authority to unilaterally place an initiative on the ballot unless there is enough validated signatures by the elections official for that initiative to come to the board. So the board does not have the ability to just unilaterally place a public or resident-sponsored initiative on the ballot. It can, however, place an initiative that is county-sponsored on the ballot. But again, the county would have to follow all of the elections code. The county would have to follow any other laws that would be required of the county, such as CEQA, in a county-sponsored initiative as it relates to marijuana. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's my understanding that the alternative or the other initiative is still, the signatures are still being counted. So as of right now, there is no initiative that has to date completed, has obtained enough valid signatures to where the elections official is triggered to bring that initiative to the board for action. The board would, when and if an initiative obtains sufficient validated signatures, that initiative will be brought to the board. The board will then have the option to adopt it outright with no modifications or place it on the ballot. So just so everybody is clear, the board cannot place an initiative on the ballot without there being sufficient valid signatures as validated by the elections official. Okay?
Excuse me, counsel, I have a question. Is there any reference, any special section that deals with this issue about the board that we can reference to and read?
It's in the elections code. I can provide that to you later. I can provide that to you later.
Thank you.
Would you provide it to all of us, please?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll move on to regular agenda.
So this item is brought forth by County Council pursuant to Government Code 65858, extend the applicability of Chapter 17.95 of the Calaveras County Code and urgency ordinance regulating medical cannabis cultivation and commerce for a period not to exceed 10 months and 15 days.
Okay, so we are here for the urgency ordinance that was adopted by the board on May 10th. It has since May 10th been implemented by staff since that date. As indicated under Government Code Section 65858, it is required that any planning and zoning urgency ordinance be extended within 45 days of its adoption. That extension would be for a period of 10 months and 15 days. If the urgency ordinance is not extended within 45 days, it expires and is no longer valid or in effect. According to the government code, it would be extended, any extension would be extended for 10 days and 15 months. And then if it is needed for the urgency ordinance to be extended, again, the government code allows for one more extension for a 1-year period. So in total, an urgency ordinance could potentially be in effect for a 2-year time period. So for purposes of today, the 45-day period expires on Friday, this coming Friday. So staff is bringing forward the urgency ordinance to the board again for consideration of that extension. Since the adoption, there have been multiple comments by the public and by various departments about changes that they would like to see in an urgency ordinance. My office has been tracking those things, and we have consistently been advising that any changes be addressed in the permanent ordinance that we are continuing to work on. However, I'm sure you will be hearing of requested changes today. If the board decides or would like to see any modifications to the urgency ordinance, any change would have to be supported with urgency findings for any change, and it would also change the time clock over again. So we would have to come back within another 45 days to extend that. It would essentially be adopting a new urgency ordinance if there's any substantive changes made. So that is why we are here today. To date, planning and many other departments have expended a significant amount of resources and time in implementing the urgency ordinance. I defer to Ms. Goulart from the Planning Department, who is here, as far as how many registrations the Planning Department has received to date. And then I would defer to Ms. Ryan on any financial impacts of not extending the urgency ordinance today, or at least within the 45-day period. So for purposes of today, staff is presenting the urgency ordinance to the board again, asking for the extension under the government code so we can continue implementing it. Darcy?
Good morning. Darcy Goulart with the Planning Department. As of the close of business yesterday, our department has taken in 198 registration forms. Of that 198, 151 are commercial, 47 are personal caregiver grows.
And if Ms. Goulart gave me the numbers, because the numbers I had didn't include some of the deposits from yesterday, we're talking about $761,000 that we've received in registration fees. As a reminder to the board, over $1 million in appropriations was included in the recommended 16-17 budget. That included 8 positions, 7 which are permanent, 1 is limited term, that additionally 2 extra hires. Of that, there were 2 deputies, 1 sergeant, and a total of $469,000 in appropriations just for the Sheriff's Department alone. Should this urgency ordinance not go forward, all of those positions that were added, as well as the $1 million in appropriations, there would be no funding for those, and those would have to be removed from the budget.
I have a question. I have a question. If the urgency ordinance did not go forward, would the money be refunded as well to the folks who paid the fees?
Yes, we would be looking at, yes, we would be refunding the fees. We would be looking at the time expended to date. But yes, there would be a refund to any applicant.
A portion of, or?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
How many commercial applications did you say there were?
151 to date.
And you said how much money was collected?
According to the figures that Ms. Goulart gave me, $761,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the board here before we go to public comments?
Not right now.
Okay. Public comments, please, on this.
Gina Gonzalez, Bar 20, Angels Camp. The issue I have is this is a one-time $5,000. Let's say I'm a commercial grower. This is the one-time $5,000. Where do they come up with the $5,000 fee? I'd like to find out who Who put it on writing $2, $70, $18, $400? Where did the $5,000 come from? Can somebody answer that for me or give me a breakdown of that? Why is it $5,000 and not $50,000?
So, I mean, we can have somebody answer you, but are you finished with your comments?
Yeah.
Somaszewski, Calaveras, Cannabis Alliance. So one thing that we've been saying from the beginning, we know that the county's target was a minimum of $1 million in registration fees. One of the things that we've been saying from the beginning is we believe that around 50% of the total registrations would be coming in the last 10 days. In the beginning, there was about, I believe, 1 or 2 registrations a day for a number of weeks, and now they're coming in, I believe, between 20 and 30 a day. If it is our belief, just from the network that we have of the people we know that have finished paperwork not turned in, that 200 mark will easily be met. If the rate of current registrations continues, the county will be at well over 325 registrations total, which smashes that target and brings in between $1 and $2 million total. We've been holding workshops. We've had about 8 so far. We've been holding them at closer together than once a week. We've talked to between 500 and 1,500 people over those workshops, teaching them how to come into compliance and line by line fill out their applications. So long story short, we do believe that the targets will be met and actually shattered. And we have a lot of people that are very excited to be doing this. There's lots of people with pictures outside the planning department holding their registrations and being happy to be Calaveras legal growers. But the whole point being is we believe we're on trajectory, and CCA is doing everything we can to educate the growers by the time they get to the planning department, so it's a little bit less hassle for them. And I want to thank the planning department for all that they have gone through. They have been slammed for weeks now, and they've been doing a great job.
Hi. Being dope dealers and collecting all this money is not going to pay for the 7 shootings we've had or the law enforcement to deal with the 3 murders we've had. Now, a lot of these people get a free criminal defense attorney. How much is a murder trial going to cost us? How much when October comes, when the harvest comes, when all the gangbangers and everybody else know they can grab a plant will get you a street value of $2,500 to $5,000 a plant. What kind of stress are we going to be putting on our law enforcement? How are we going to afford to pay for all the criminal cases that are coming in and the blood has been spilled? How are we going to deal with the 7 shootings and 3 murders we have in Calaveras County and paying for their defense attorney off a $5,000 permit? Really? One plant? And we just stopped 10,800 plants growing down in Copperopolis? And $5,000? That does not sound like good business sense. You are all very smart people. Please, don't let Calaveras County be the dope dealer of the Bay Area. As a concerned mom, as a retired peace officer, our get-rich-quick from dope money is not going to go and have the people we want living here. Parents and mothers and kids and everybody are going to leave because we're going to invite the criminal cartel element, and it's already happening. Just watch. Harvest time comes, it's going to be bad.
Hi, my name is Dina Morris, and I just want to say you're welcome for the $761,000, because even though I didn't pay that fee directly, I did pay it indirectly. I paid it because I had the loss of use of my property. I now have the loss of my community. I have the loss of peace and safety. And now I have the added risk of crime because there's multiple grows around me, commercial grows, and also, most importantly, the loss of my grandkids again this year. So again, you guys are welcome. It wasn't easy for me to pay that, but I was forced to. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carol Couchman. Somebody made a comment about justice for all, and I understand how they feel. But what about justice for the medical patients who are saving their life by the use of this plant? This plant, and I have personal experience with this, has saved so many lives. And I know that we aren't talking about the medical part of this, but I just wanted to give a side-by-side comparison of us cultivators being portrayed as dope dealers and unsavory characters and things like that. We need regulation to get rid of the criminal element, to make this a viable business for people like me. Do I look like a criminal?
Please address the board.
I'm sorry. I am a mother, a farmer, an educator. I worked in technology and information for 25 years. I'm an upstanding citizen. Okay? Teenagers, somebody made a comment about teenage use going up. I'm going to cite my statistics. This is the Drug Policy Alliance. Teenage use of cannabis has actually declined in the last 3 years. I suspect it's because now that it's medicine and teenagers see that it has a use, it's not interesting to them anymore. Their gateway is alcohol and tobacco and prescription medications. That's what they're hooked on. That's what leads to them having a bad life. It is not cannabis. I wonder where our anti-people are getting their statistics, because they're not citing where they're getting this. Statistics have to be cited to be valid. You can't just say things and everybody has to believe it. You need statistics. So I just would like to say that. Last, I'd like to say that change is hard, and I understand that. We've had to change our society over the years multiple times. In this case, change is good. We are helping people with this plant. Thank you for your time.
Hello, members of the board, Mr. Chairman, county staff. I'm Matt Clark. You were talking about numbers on registrations a moment ago, and I just here to report a little bit. My office is handling a number of those registrations, and we have about 50 or so commercial registrations left to come in. Thank you.
Good morning, Vicki Reinke, Angels Camp. I didn't prepare anything to say, but I just want to make a comment about today's meeting. And obviously you have several people who have gotten up who are not impressed by the fact that we're going to make $1 million selling permits for marijuana people. So keep that in mind, that that's, you know, nothing that we're interested in hearing. There's other solutions to this as well. I know they say, well, a ban, that wouldn't, how would we pay for that? Well, I want to make a suggestion as a citizen. It may or may not work, but I believe it could, that if we were to ban the cultivation of marijuana in Calaveras County, that these good citizens would be willing to pay a small tax on their properties to pay law enforcement so that they can build their enforcement back up, which we're very short already on law enforcement, and that we would be able to then eradicate the marijuana in our county because of whether the people want it or not. And it sounds like now we're going to be told that the Board of Supervisors cannot put our initiative on the ballot, which is only going to make people more and more angry. I hope you can find a way to do that. You can make it your initiative, but put ours on. I don't know why that can't be done. So anyway, I just can't help but be a voice to help some of these people who today got up to this microphone who would never have done that. But they're so concerned that you saw them get up here. And you need to start listening. I know today you're working on whether or not you're going to continue this ordinance. I can't tell you one way or the other. I know you're in the middle of it. But the people are going to push. If, like we said, we'll get a special election then if you guys won't do something for us. But the people are watching. Thank you.
Good morning, Rosemary Wilson. I heard Megan say that it might be possible for the current emergency ordinance to last anything up to 2 years. I'd like to ask what the timeline is for incorporating the comments, discussing the comments proposed, the changes proposed in the ordinance from the staff, so as to make an ordinance which is not an emergency ordinance, but is a sort of a regular ordinance that can be strengthened or rather clarified as opposed to the emergency ordinance that is currently in effect. I'd hate to see an emergency ordinance in effect for 2 years when there are perhaps changes that would clarify the ordinance and help strengthen compliance in a shorter period of time. Thank you.
Bill McManus, Hanford Hill. I wanted to make a few comments about the urgency ordinance and its kind of ugly history. It seemed to be an ordinance that came about in a hurry. It was rushed. It wasn't well thought out. Had to be kicked around. Had multiple due dates, which invited more abuse of the system as far as starting new grows. Excuse me, which was precisely the point of having it in the first place and making it an urgency. By changing the due dates, you've actually encouraged people to come in and start new grows, which they are still doing today, even after the second cutoff date. So while it was bad in the beginning, it's also bad and ineffective now, and it's going to be bad and ineffective in the future. It's kind of like fish and in-laws, it doesn't get better with time. And I don't know how many more grows and crime that we're going to have if we extend this urgency ordinance. Unfortunately, the regulations that were put forth in a hurry, in a rush to get it done, didn't take into account the unintended consequences, which forcing growers to look for water and infrastructure actually had the negative effect of pushing them into rural residential neighborhoods where that type of infrastructure is more readily available, either to buy water off a neighbor or be able to get utility water. So in trying to protect the people, you've actually encouraged this illegal activity or this criminal activity into our neighborhoods, which was never the intent. You wanted to do something else. And as far as regulation and compliance, right now, I mean, last year we heard the number of 1,000 grows in this county. We know that there's much more than that this year because of the huge influx that was aided by the implementation of the urgency ordinance. You're at 10% or less of compliance. Is that regulation going to come from that? Does that tell the people that, you know, what you did is going to fix their problem? Or is it kind of a joke? And why do you expect to have 90% of the enforcement supported by 10% of those who comply? 30 seconds. It doesn't seem to make sense. So I would ask that the board consider not approving the urgency ordinance, move on to a temporary ban until the end of the year when a new board will be seated in January, and or it's decided in November if you put it on the ballot. And finally, if we have to do a special election, we'll let our voice be heard early next year. Thank you.
Good morning, Board. My name is William Wilson. I live in Circle 20. We are a grower. We paid our $5,000 to grow commercially this year. Those people in Copperopolis,
please look this way,
that were busted, that was an illegal grow. That's why we're registering. We don't want to be illegal. We want to pay our taxes. We want to protect our neighbors. We want to make cannabis a green business in Calaveras, not an armed guard business. I've never locked my gate in 5 years that I've grown here. I've never had a plant ripped off. I've never had anyone come to my house except for sheriffs with guns. I've never had anyone bother anything on my property in 5 years, and I've grown marijuana there for 5 years. I have a vicious guard dog. It's a cockapoo. Okay? This urgency ordinance that you passed, I hope you renew. If the people that want to ban, they can vote against the ordinance that we got on the ballot. That's their right. They didn't do theirs right. You shouldn't have to make it right for them. Thank you.
Good morning. Jed Richardson, Mountain Ranch Realty. I would like to say that the urgency ordinance has met its goals in stemming the flow of new people into the county to cultivate cannabis. The sale of properties has dropped off at least 75%. All the realtors I know are informing people of the new ordinance, people that maybe are trying to come in and aren't aware of the ordinance. And to not renew the ordinance at this time would just start the land rush again. So I urge you to renew the ordinance at this time. Thank you.
Morning, folks. Sheriff DiBasilio. I've been talking with Ned Stedfield about our ordinance, and the only request that I have is, and it was an oversight, I think, on everybody's part because we were there until 11 o'clock that night when we did this emergency ordinance. What was left out was the ability that the Sheriff's Department has to do backgrounds or get information on folks that are going to be working on the sites. That was omitted, and it was something that we had talked about in the emergency ordinance originally. It was something that you guys said that you were going to add. That was the one request that I would have, is that language to allow the sheriffs or have people who are going to be working on these commercial grow sites submit their name and their information so I can do a background on them. The problem that I'm running into right now is DOJ is only allowing me to do interstate. Is that right? We talked about that. Interstate. Within California, I can only do a background on them. I'm working with them right now through the State Sheriff's Association to be able to do throughout the United States. We call it III. Because right now, if I have somebody come in from Florida that has a felony, I have no way of knowing that he has a felony. So it's imperative that I have the ability to check people that are working on these sites, because I need to know who my deputies are going to deal with. I also have some pictures, as everybody knows here pretty much, that we've been doing a lot of knock and talks and checking. I have a lot of pictures, a lot of grows here. These are for you people to take a look at, just to give you an idea of the size of the grows. I understand there's a lot of folks here that have legal grows, and I'm okay with that. These grows are not legal. These grows go anywhere from 1 acre to 2 acres. There's a lot of caddy shacks going up on the properties. It's going to be difficult for me to be able to combat all of that, along with being able to deal with the legal grows. I know we just got done with budgets. I know that there's a concern that if this ordinance does not get continued, that the funding is going to go away. Again, I'm back between that quandary of whether I want it or whether I don't. It doesn't matter. It's what you folks want and what you want me to do. But I want you to understand the ramifications that we're having up in the area and the inability that I have to check people that are going to be in our county and that my deputies and the public are going to have to make contact with. Again, the only thing that I'm requesting at this time is that the language get put back into the ordinance or put into the ordinance that anybody who works on a site has to register with the Sheriff's Department where they're working, their name, address, phone number, the whole 9 yards. And it's not going to inhibit the registrant from keeping his registration. That is not my intent. If the registration person, property owner, whoever that is going to register and they meet all the qualifications, that's fine. If they have a worker then that worker cannot work there, is bottom line. And it's not going to stop them from continuing with their grow. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cindy. I'm not a dope dealer. I'm a cancer patient. Cancer sucks. There needs to be a non-commercial, large, personal medical group that I can fall into. I am not a commercial grower. I am a grower of my own medication. I don't intend on selling any bit of what I grow this year. My medication, I believe that I should have the right to grow my own because I cannot afford the amount of medication that I need. I am a chronic pain sufferer and a cancer patient. For the last 10 years, I have been battling cancer. Without this ability to grow my own, I would be dead, seriously dead. I cannot take any painkillers. I would not ever think about putting chemotherapy in my body ever again. I've done it twice already, and I have survived that. All the pain medicine that I've had to take over the years created my colon cancer. And the only thing I can do now is live on marijuana and its benefits that I can get from it, from my own self. I need every bit of every plant that I grow. I can't afford to live without it. My life depends on it. If you guys keep adding more restrictions to me, I will be limited to painkillers and will be dead within a year. I cannot. And there are other people in this community that suffer also. They cannot take pain medications, don't want to kill themselves by taking chemotherapy again for the third or fourth or fifth time. I don't know if any one of you have ever dealt with anything like chronic pain and not been able to take a pain medicine to relieve yourself from it, or had cancer and had to have all those symptoms that you've had to deal with and not been able to do it because you didn't have the ability to medicate yourself. When all these taxes, when all these fines and regulations and fees and everything go in, it's going to cost so much money for anyone on medical cannabis to try to live and cope with life and want to live. If you take this ability away from me, I won't want to live. 30 seconds. This is the only thing that keeps me going. Without it, I couldn't be moving my garden for the third time because of these setbacks. I have a hernia right now that I've been dealing with all through this whole time to comply with everything. And these people want to call me a drug dealer. They want to call me a dope head, and they want to think that I'm selling it to your kids. God forbid you ever have cancer and you need what I need, and you can't get it. Thank you for your time.
Melissa Bertel, Rancho. I do have a chronic illness where I'm in pain every day, 6 days of the week. My child has to help me get dressed. Yet, the medical marijuana grows behind my house and in front of my house, number one, are compliant sometimes and not compliant other times. They are growing 60 to 70 plants to care for one person in their household. There is traffic at the house all night long. 15 minutes, leaving. Coming for 15 minutes, leaving. One neighbor found out the other one hadn't planted yet and said, oh, good, maybe their customers will come to me. But these are people that have a legal marijuana garden on their property that no one will do anything about. We have dealt with this for 7 years. There are other ways to deal with this, and I ask you to please think about the residents of the county.
We're only allowed to speak one time per.
I'm Don Overacker, Mountain Ranch, and I need to relay this story to you people. I worked in the Bay Area as a fire captain for 5 years, and I worked the murder capital of the United States. And if you know the Bay Area, you know where I'm talking about. I've seen horrific shootings, killings. I've seen more killings than most people in this room have. And I'll never forget, we got a call to, there was just a simple dope deal, and the drug dealer shot the mother. There was 2 young ladies in the car and 2 children in the back seat. The child in the back seat was still in his high chair or car seat. Took the kid out of there. There was no police at the time because they didn't have police out there at this time. And this poor kid had been shot in the mouth, and he was dying because the blood was coming. He couldn't get. And thank God for the 2 paramedics we had. They saved his life. But what I'm worried about is the future of this county. Not right now. You people need to think about the future of this county. Where we're going to go. The sheriff needs help. He needs a lot of help. And $1 million is not enough to help this guy out. I know. We're in a very rich area, and money couldn't solve all our problems. But anyway, people just got to think of the future, what's going to happen. There's a lot of medical marijuana. It's been a good thing, and there's a place for it. But there's not a place for free reign, and you people need to control it. Thank you.
Aaron Elliott, District 4. I got to point out we have direct results going on. All these problems are something we seriously have to address. There's no money to do it without it. Even if there was a ban in November, if you guys don't push this forward and continue on, what's going to happen for the rest of the summer? There's no money for enforcement. $750,000 isn't even enough right now. We're going to get another $1 million, and hopefully that can help out. But without that money, and without the Water Quality Control Board being pushed on illegal growers to take care of our watersheds, what's going to happen for the rest of the summer is no one wins. No one in this room. We got to have regulation. It's the only way. And right now it's temporary, but we'll work on that. We'll get it better. Thank you, Council.
Good morning, Board. I'd just like to say thank you. You're giving us a very good chance at this. I'd like to address the former officer that spoke. I agree with that we do need to crack down on these illegal grows. I think that you're getting the funding to do that and to be able to put it in those places. I'd like to address the former sir that had spoken about a very fatal story. I don't think that's very relevant for this area. I've been in the city. That's not where we're at. We're here in the country for a reason. I think you're thinking of the future because of this action. You're ready for the future. We're going to do this, okay, as a community. The crime is going to be controlled because of this. You're going to have the money to implement that. This kind of coexists with Governor Brown's 2009 action to have illegal aliens, immigrants drive. So now any immigrant can have a license in California. It's permitted, and they don't have to be a resident or have other paperwork. Coexist, so now all these grows can be permitted. We can all work on your legal system, and we want to abide by that. So if we're all working together, we're working for the future. Let's keep doing this, guys. Thank you.
Again. So we asked you to ban it from residential areas. You didn't do that. Why can't you do that? Let them grow wherever they want to grow. That's really rural. Protect my community. My community, our community, the people that live in the communities with their children. Get it out of the residential R, rural area R. Get it out of there. I'm asking you to do it. Put the addendum in. Get it out of the residential. Get the commercial grows out of our community. Cliff, do you want it next door to your house?
I have it.
Well, then you want to live with it. I don't.
I have meth.
Well, did you call the sheriff? So the deal is, get rid of that out of the residential.
8 years I have, yes.
Yeah. Well, you're the man. If it doesn't work for you, what do you think it's supposed to do for us? Get it out of residential.
My name is David Beeler. I've lived in this county since I was 11 years old. I've been ridiculed my whole life for smoking pot. I smoke pot because I have crippling anxiety. I also have H. pylori that eats away the inside of my gut so I can't absorb nutrition. People call me a tweaker because I'm skinny and I can't absorb food. I have to eat, so I have to smoke pot. People like Tom Liberty have helped me have jobs in this town and have helped me succeed so I can live a life. If the ban happens, I can't live up here anymore. I don't really have anywhere to go. This is my whole life. I grow in a residential area. Nobody knows where I grow. Actually, where my grow is and how I support myself is inside the limits of the ordinance, so I have always been legal. For the last 10 years, under 215, I have been legal, and under 420, and abused no laws. I now have to register and do all this ridiculous stuff because people are afraid of unrealistic things that they do not understand. And people have to do unreal, like if you guys actually put that $5 tax on the square foot thing that you guys are talking about, that's going to highly affect people who have never actually made a huge impact in this industry. So if you're new to this industry and you've already put in all your, the registration and all that, and you put that tax in based on square footage and not on the actual amount you're getting, you're screwing over certain people. And other people who are doing light depths every year and getting about triple or 4 times the amount are not getting screwed over. So again, what I would really advise you do is get a team of people who are indoor growers, outdoor growers, light depth growers, and actually discuss, and people who don't want this part of the county, and discuss these in town hall meetings, so it's not side by side, so everybody's actually putting their input. And really, everybody needs to be open-minded. Really, nobody's being open-minded about anything. Because I do understand that there is crime, but crime is because this is part of the black market. If we take this away from the black market, there is no crime. And then the crime will go towards meth. And then you can get rid of the meth. Because there's a huge meth problem in this town. You guys are worried about kids smoking pot? Pot's probably the only thing that saved my life through high school. Meth is everywhere. Every kid that I knew that grew up in this town, parents smoked meth, made meth, or moved meth. Meth is the problem, and it is highly everywhere in residential areas. It can be made in any house. But you guys are worried about small grow-ops. Like that last lady who had cancer. Like me, who've been sick for 10 years. I wake up every morning. I almost puke 2 times getting here. I'm going to leave the second after here because I feel sick as hell. I'm shaking. That's what I do every morning. I can barely work. But people like Tom, who've also helped Kaz, all these people, they are very helpful. They are not criminals. And that's all there is to say. And I'm sorry to the people who really, really think that this is a bad thing. But I'm not criminal. I hang out with my dog all day long because I can't hang out in public. I get sick. That's it. Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify something. I don't think the ban people are saying to ban marijuana for medical use. It's to ban the cultivation, commercial cultivation. So these people that have cancer or need it for a medical purpose themselves, it's my understanding that that's not what we're talking about.
Excuse me, I need to say something here. You as a council opened up a can of worms in this county. You're having a problem dealing with it, right? You're elected officials. These folks that have problems and concerns, Mr. Alvarez, I went to a fire meeting the other day in Arnold, and then I listened to you talk. Nothing got accomplished, sadly. These folks that have concerns and worries, the cattle ranch are losing the cattle, that shouldn't happen.
Excuse me, could you address the board, please?
I'm a grower. I brought this back from Vietnam. Understand this. The FDA just passed a bill. The Veterans Administration is going to pay for all the vets' prescriptions. I've had mine approved by the VA, my doctor at the VA, my counsel at the VA approved my grow, my prescriptions, right? You guys are bouncing back and forth, right? Put it on the ballot. These folks want it on the ballot. These people that are growing, a lot of them aren't criminals. Understand this. The gentleman in the Bay Area, how many places can you grow in the Bay Area? Right?
Please address
All right?
Okay.
The young man, you have a meth problem. You have a heroin problem. Deal with that. There are people coming to you, coming out of the closet, paying money, good money, all right, to help you with the problem of enforcement. Do something with it. We the people. On the Constitution it says, we the people decide, not you. Take that to the bank. I'm voting. You guys can be replaced by vote. Understand that. Right? I'm a Vietnam veteran. 1st Air Cat Division. 2 tours. I've seen pain and suffering. I've seen murder.
Any other public comment?
Hello, Mark Bolger, Mountain Ranch. I want to state again, I don't think anyone from the Calaveras Cannabis Alliance or other legal cannabis farmers in this county want to belittle any of the concerns from our, the other constituents of yours, the other county residents. I would like to say again, and I won't be long-winded because I've said it many times, regulation is the answer to the problems these people are having with neighbors. If the people that want to ban or people that don't want this urgency ordinance renewed had a solution for how we could fund going after these problem grows, I'd be all open to hearing it. I don't see a way for the county to tackle these issues that we're facing. If we're looking at prospectively maybe 300 applicants, 1.5 million going towards the Sheriff's Department code compliance, hopefully Ag Department. I really hope Ag Department can see some of that money eventually when the time comes. And I won't get too ahead of myself with the next agenda item, but we could be looking at between $5 and $10 million in tax revenue here. That could turn this county around. It definitely will be enough to take care of the problems and concerns that other residents of the county have. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? No? Okay. Bring it back to the board. So do I have any board comments on this?
I would like Megan to explain some of the questions that were asked in regards to the fee development and what is included in the urgency ordinance to deal with future fees.
Right, so there was a little confusion. There was a comment about the $5,000 fee. It is not a one-time fee. It is for the registration and any renewal. So next year when it needs to be renewed, every year it would be renewed as long as we're working under the urgency ordinance. The $5,000 fee would apply. Under the urgency ordinance, there's language that allows that within the first year, the county is to do a nexus study. That study is to look at the overall cost of overseeing and implementing the program. Within that nexus study, we would be looking at whether that fee needs to increase or decrease based on the services provided. So as of right now, we looked at what we estimated in our what we anticipated as far as cost and overall impact, came up with that number, knowing that we were going to be further reviewing it through a nexus study and modifying the fee based on that nexus study, either up or down. But that fee will, in fact, be an annual fee as long as we are working under the urgency ordinance. The $5,000 fee is also for commercial. There is a lesser dollar amount fee, $100 for personal grow, $200 for caregiver grows. In the urgency ordinance. It's actually listed in the urgency ordinance. So I recommend, the urgency ordinance is posted on the planning department's website. So anybody who has not had an opportunity to actually review the urgency ordinance, you can find it on the planning department's website, and all of the information is in the urgency ordinance. It's also attached to today's agenda item for reference as well. The other question that was raised was about timelines for permanent ordinance, as far as how long, because we could arguably be working under an urgency ordinance for up to 2 years. There are a lot of factors, there are a lot of moving parts, but staff is still working towards a permanent ordinance. We are making a list of all of the concerns, including the concerns that were brought up by Sheriff DiBasilio, and those were things that we were anticipating to address in the permanent ordinance. The board just recently executed the contract for the EIR consultant for the permanent ordinance. Planning is working with the EIR consultant to get CEQA and environmental review underway, but we do not anticipate this being a quick or easy process. So we had previously hoped and anticipated of looking at a permanent ordinance or bringing a permanent ordinance back to this board within a year. I don't know if that's going to be accomplished or not, because CEQA and the EIR process is a lengthy one.
Could you explain how that CEQA process will be paid?
Well, based on the fees, the registration fees that will are collected and will be collected if this goes forward through June 30th, that funding will be used to offset the cost of the contract for the required EIR.
And so the EIR is, what's the reason for the EIR?
When we are looking at, the county has to comply with CEQA. The EIR is looking at all of the environmental impacts and how we have to mitigate any significant impact. We have to find a way to mitigate, and so that is what we will be doing in a programmatic EIR. I don't know if Darcy wants to chime in greater detail about the EIR process, or Julie, and what the EIR consultant will be going over within the permanent ordinance.
I guess what I'm asking is there an EIR process for any other land use change? Anytime you change an ordinance or something like that?
When a county passes an ordinance that's going to impact the use of property and land, it's generally considered a project under CEQA. What makes our situation a little bit more difficult is, unlike some other counties, especially up in the northwestern part of the state, which already had some cannabis cultivation ordinances already on the books, which means they had already done some environmental study and have an easier time piggybacking. We had nothing on the books. And because of that, we're starting fresh, and we have to have the initial larger scale environmental impact report in order to meet the requirements of CEQA and have a reasonable chance of surviving litigation under that. There have been counties that have tried to do less than an EIR who already had ordinances on the books for medical cannabis cultivation, and they've already been sued under CEQA, and I understand there's potentially, going to be settling those cases. So we're legally required to do that, given the breadth of the ordinance and the fact that we didn't have one before. The environmental impact the environmental consultant will be taking a look at all of the factors that CEQA requires to be considered when a new project is initiated by the county, which would include a statutory scheme. They'll be looking at impacts to traffic, air, water, aesthetics, et cetera, and to the extent that there is a potential for a significant impact, they'll have to analyze the extent to which our existing ordinance mitigates those impacts already with the restrictions that we've imposed here, and they'll also have to look at whether there's any unmitigated impacts that we will need to change, that we would have to respond to by changing the language of the ordinance. Obviously, one of the positions we're taking right now is that having some regulation is better than having no regulation, so comparing it to what we had before, we are taking steps to remedy a situation. We'll have to see to what extent that alone would be able to prevent us from having to make additional changes in order to meet the needs of CEQA.
Any other questions? From the board?
I've got a comment or two. I'm a little discouraged in the fact that the board cannot do anything regarding putting this issue on a ballot and letting the people decide. I've listened to both sides of that argument, and I have respect for the folks that are represented by CCA. I have respect for the folks in our Calaveras County. I am personally aware of the crime problems associated with this. We talked about that before. To wit, I still stand on my position. I'd like to have this issue decided by the people, and I understand from the comments made today that there will be a special election as a new effort is actually fostered to get this initiative on the ballot. Once again, I remain. Let the people decide. Thank you.
What would stop Supervisor Oliveira from bringing forward his own version of that to put on the ballot?
Well, one, I want to remind the board, for today, we are addressing the urgency ordinance. We are not here for either of the initiatives, the regulatory initiative or the ban initiative. The initiatives are not on today's agenda. Today's agenda item is the extension of the urgency ordinance.
I understand that. So we're not going to respond to that question at this point.
Certainly, if a board member pulled the rest of the board and directed staff to bring forward or to draft a county-sponsored initiative, we would need direction on what that county-sponsored initiative said, and then county staff could draft that initiative and move through the process for a county-sponsored initiative.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, sure.
So as I understand this, that we could actually poll the board to see if we can conduct a study session on this initiative problem at another meeting? Is that correct, Council?
Certainly, we could hold a study session if the board as a whole directed us to hold a study session, yes, but what I want to make sure that it's clear, both initiatives are not something that are in front of the board. Regardless if we hold a study session, unless and until sufficient votes are determined to be validated by the elections official, there is nothing that the board can do unless the board as a whole directed staff to draft its own county-sponsored initiative, and what that would look like, staff would need direction on. So as of right now, for purposes of today, we can certainly agendize something else, but unless and until we get direction or verification from the elections official that there are sufficient valid signatures of either, the initiative is not coming to the board for action, one way or the other. As of right now, neither initiative is placed on the ballot, just so everybody knows. Neither initiative is placed on the ballot because both we have not heard one way or another, we have not gotten confirmation that either one has had sufficient validated signatures. They are still counting. They are still counting on the regulatory one, and the elections official has made its determination on the ban initiative. So again, as of right now, I feel like we're going off track because, again, this is not about the initiatives. The initiatives are not on today's agenda.
Well, let me shorten the time a little bit, Council. Maybe we can agendize this for further discussion at a later date. Is that possible?
Well, just... Well, just so the board knows, my discussions with the elections official is once she has finished counting the signatures of the initiative that she is currently working on, if there is sufficient validated signatures, she will be notifying staff, and that initiative will be brought forward to the board on the July 12th meeting. That is what is anticipated at this point, but unless and until the validation of signatures has completed by the elections official, there's nothing that the board can do for either of those initiatives at this point.
All right, one more short, small question. C.A. Ryan, what's the cost of a special election to the county?
A lot.
Folks, please.
It really depends on the time frame and whether it's countywide. I believe it can be up to $40,000.
$40,000.
Thank you.
Just for clarification purposes, let's get back on focus of the extension of the urgency ordinance. If the board would like to, if one of the board members would like to poll the rest of the board as to whether we hold a study session on whether there's a desire for a county-initiated, county-sponsored initiative, we can do that at the end of the meeting, like we do on any other polling of the board for future items.
Thank you, Council.
You're welcome.
How about that? That works, right? Works for me. Right. So now let's get back to our agenda. So we've had public comments on the extension of the urgency ordinance. And is there any other board comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, hang on, I got a comment.
Did I jump in?
Yeah, you were very gunslinging it there on me.
Yeah, sorry. I withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Supervisor. I would like to say that in this ordinance, it says an urgency ordinance regulating medical cannabis cultivation and commerce for a period not to exceed 10 months and 15 days. And at that time, we have the legal right to extend it one more time. What I would like to say is an urgency ordinance regulating medical cannabis cultivation and commerce for a period not to exceed beyond February 14th, 2017. That'll be the very first meeting of the second month of the new board.
Is that your motion?
Well, that's what I'm telling you. I can make a motion to that if you would like me to. It's very close to 10 months. There were concerns and complaints from during the evolution of this ordinance that we have indicated that the people in the cannabis industry made significant investments because we weren't able to make decisions. And I would say that if we do this, we'll either have voter guidance or board guidance or something else going forward.
Certainly, that if that is the board's direction, it can limit it. The government code specifies that it is for no more than 10 months and 15 days. So we can revisit it at any point in that time period, but the government code says that this extension would be for no more than 10 months and 15 days.
And so can we make that change that he suggested without having to bring it back in 45 days?
Certainly, because that change is just in the resolution. That's not a change in the actual urgency ordinance. I have no problem with that. That
sounds great.
I agree with that.
So just so I'm clear, so in the resolution extending the adopted urgency ordinance, where it says, be it further resolved that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors hereby extends urgency ordinance number 2016-0510-3069, which was passed on May 10th, 2016, for a period of no more than 10 days and 15 months. We will strike for a period of no more than 10 months, what, I'm sorry?
10 months and 15
February 14th, 2017.
Sorry. Strike for a period of no more than 10 months and 15 days. Strike that and replace that with for a period terminating or expiring on February 14th, 2017.
Which is the first meeting of the new board in the second month. Happy Valentine's Day. I move with that change that we approve.
I'll second that.
Okay. Before I call for the motions, I would like to explain my portion of this. We were getting bombarded with people afraid of their neighborhoods. And so I did some research on that myself. I went up and drove the areas. And there are a lot of folks up there that are not an issue, but there is a significant issue from the years of allowing this to be unregulated or uncontrolled for up to 30 years. And now it's funny that it all comes to a head right now. But it's been happening here for many, many years. Many years. And so now you're afraid. So I've noticed it in my business alone for the past 10 years. I've had significant issues with break-ins. Even my house has been broken into. Couldn't tell you what kind of, what it was all about. I am speculating it had to do with some kind of drug use. But who knows? Because it never caught anybody. But they were able to come back again and do it. I have also noticed in more than 10 years that I've been here, of the homeless people coming here and settling in. I have plenty of experience with that since I own a business in town. Wake up, going to work in the morning, and there are barefoot people sitting on my in front of my business, or folks that. Okay, cool. Thought it was one of those folks. So, there was a real popular gentleman in town, Albert. Albert was here since 1973. Albert was a homeless guy here since 1973. He was drunk every day by 11 o'clock. Right? He became part of the town. And he died here a few years back, and then there were many people that took his place. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I've heard a lot of reasons for it. But with no regulation, what California has done was allowed folks to do this for many years. And now we're dealing with it. And it is a tough choice. Because my fear is safety more than anything for our communities. More than anything, that's what I am most concerned with. Us doing nothing left everybody unsafe. Us doing something to move us in a direction is giving our law enforcement in the county and the community a chance to react to that in a way that they can work together and provide some safeguards. And we are able to be able to afford that, in a sense. So, I guess that's my quick and easy reason why I am for regulation. Because not only that, but I'm 60 years old. I don't do any drugs. I don't drink. I'd have like 6 beers a year. That's it, if it's hot enough. And but I've been around. Even when I was in school, marijuana was readily available. It was available ever since I can remember. It was available when my kids went to school. And but it's always been available as a black market item. And that makes it really dangerous. Because it's cash. Cash is king. And so, personally, I see an opportunity to knock some of that off. And make it work for us. Because it's been working against us for a very long time. And it's dangerous. And I don't want it to be dangerous anymore. So, I am willing to take a look at the initiative. People think that they know all of the facts and they have the remedies. on how to control it by banning it. Somebody show me how that works. Show me how it works, and I'll be happy to support that. So, Bill, one of the folks got up and said the regulation cause unintended consequences. So far, what I've seen is people moving out of the county that are not going to qualify. I've seen the property is not being turned over now like it used to because that land rush basically has, there are actually folks that read the ordinance and they realize that it is restrictive. It is very restrictive. I like the fact that the ordinance also covers the environment, because I have been on sites where I've seen 55-gallon drums of vegetation removal, insecticides, herbicides, all kinds of poisons like furdan and other things just dumped in the ground because there was no oversight, nothing. It was hidden. I've seen waterways dammed up where they shouldn't be dammed up, and stream alterations and things like that. And so, in my mind, what we're doing is we're minimizing the target so that the sheriff can be effective. And that's really important to me, so that we can stop some of this stuff that everybody's worried about, really. And so that's, and who am I? I'm just a regular person, right? What do I know? But I know that my life has been affected enough by poverty and the drug-related, alcohol-related crimes in this town to severely affect my life and my family's life. I know that. I know that the sheriff has been after us for since I've been on the board to give them some tools to combat this. Before that, why did it get so big up until now? You think it happened in 1 year? It happened over the past 40 years or 30 years. When my parents first moved up here, when I came up here, it was here then. So, I'm just looking at the facts and the reality. And so, I don't want the illegal operations. Period. So, I have a motion by Supervisor.
Comment.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm supporting this urgency ordinance, and I'm going to give a little reason why. But first, there was a comment made, a campaign statement that was read earlier. And, I just want to clarify that part of what I said in that statement holds true today, and especially with this issue. I've worked long and hard to understand this issue, both the pros and the cons. I've worked to understand it. I've worked to find compromise, and I've worked to establish policy. And this is the first step in that, is what the urgency ordinance. For years, there's been hardly anything that this board and previous boards have been able to do. A lot of it has been because state law, federal law, whatever it might be that's out there. Today, we have state law to support counties and cities in whatever they choose to do, either ban it or regulate it. This county has chosen to regulate it. Like Cliff said, it's been in this county for many, many years. And not only is it the cannabis, but it's also the other industries that this cannabis has supported. And that's what I've learned. I didn't realize that. I just thought it was somebody growing something on 5 acres, not 5-acre canopy, but on their property, and had no idea the effects out to the other industry. But there's been no monies at the county level to help enforce it. And so with the urgency ordinance, working towards a more permanent ordinance and having the EIR done to show us what our needs are going to be to help mitigate some of the concerns, roads being one of them, air quality, noise, et cetera, et cetera. So the urgency ordinance puts regulation in place. We haven't had local regulation. It also, with regulation, put a fee structure in place to support that legislation. So many times we are handed legislation with no financial opportunities to enforce it. It's called unfunded mandates. We now have something here with monies that we can enforce some of these things. The fee study will help determine if the fee is enough or not. In addition to that, the next agenda item is taxation, and that's something that I've supported from day one. This industry does not pay taxes like other industries do. So now we have a chance to be on equal playing fields. So all along, I've been supporting this for up to the last year. It took me a lot of time to really talk with people beyond Calaveras County, at the state level, and other states to find out how it's working or not working for them. And so that's the hard work I've put into this in establishing policy. Yeah, crime is a biggie. It's just not marijuana. So hopefully now with this urgency ordinance, if it should pass today, we continue down the path of collecting our fees to help support the regulation, and hopefully later today we can get a taxation model on the ballot so taxes can be paid and we can have more monies to support many of our other services in the county. Besides just law enforcement, I like to see our libraries open 60, 70 hours a week. Now they're open 20. I like to see more monies in roads. This county's lost over $1 million this year alone in road monies because of the sales gas tax going down. I like to see more parks. I like to see more recreational opportunities. And so I'm hoping with taxation we'll have those monies to do those kinds of things. So I continue to support this urgency ordinance and moving forward.
Any other comments? Okay, so I have a motion by Supervisor Kearney, second by Supervisor Wright.
Could you refresh the motion for me, please?
Motion is that the urgency ordinance will continue until February 14th, at which time it will end. Which will allow a new board to come in and to...
either extend it or something else.
Yeah. Is that in line with the request made on the agenda item, Council?
What the agenda item is to adopt a resolution extending the applicability of the urgency ordinance. And the request within that resolution, sorry, technical difficulties. Maybe within the resolution that is before the board, the motion was to strike for a period of no more than 10 months and 15 days and insert, so it would read, be further resolved that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors hereby extends urgency ordinance number, and then states the urgency ordinance number, which was passed on May 10th, until February 14th, 2017, which is the first meeting of the second month for the newly elected Board of Supervisors. The remainder of the resolution would be unchanged.
Thank you, Council.
So I have the second by Supervisor Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Before you do that, can I make a quick public service comment statement that June 30th is the final date for people to register. If you do not file by June 30th at 4 o'clock, you will not be let in. I will have deputies on scene to ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Edson, could I possibly make a real quick announcement?
One more announcement, please, before we take a 10-minute break.
We did release a press release last week. If anybody has more than 5 registration forms to submit, you need to call and set up an appointment with the planning department. We cannot possibly process 50 applications at one time for one person, so we do need people to make appointments with us.
Okay. We're going to take a 10-minute break.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
You ready, Diane?
Ready.
All right. So number 2 on the agenda is County Council.
So, to introduce and waive reading of an ordinance submitting to the vote of the electorate a measure to impose a commercial cannabis tax on outdoor/mixed light cultivation at the rate of $2 per square foot of canopy area until the Department of Food and Agriculture has established and implemented a track and trace program under Business and Professions Code Section 19335 at C, at which time the tax rate shall be $45 per pound of dry weight flower and bud and $10 per pound of dry weight leaves and trim, and a commercial cannabis tax on indoor cultivation at the rate of $5 per square foot of canopy area until the Department of Food and Agriculture has established and implemented a track and trace program under Business and Professions Code Section 19335 at C, at which time the tax rate shall be $70 per pound of dry weight flower and bud and $15 per pound of dry weight leaves and trim, and a gross proceeds tax of 7% on the manufacturing of cultivated cannabis, and a gross proceeds tax of 7% on retail, medicinal, or legal cannabis storefronts, collectives, and dispensaries for general governmental purposes.
Okay, so for this item number 2, it is in conjunction with number 3, but number 2 is going first, which is the actual commercial cannabis tax ordinance. Earlier in the year, the board directed our office to start working on a tax initiative, a tax ordinance. Our office has worked with various staff. Staff has reviewed many different reports and studies, and we have reached out to a variety of resources. And the information that this is what is being proposed. It is the introduction of the ordinance. Just so everybody knows, ordinances have to be introduced, and then they have to come back, have to be published for adoption. So today is not adoption of a tax measure. It's not adoption of the ordinance. It's the introduction of the ordinance. My Assistant County Counsel, David Sirius, is here for any questions that the board may have. But this is what was established with a variety of staff and other resources. This is what is being proposed.
So you asked for an ordinance, asked you shall receive. You have the ordinance in place. For your consideration, a couple of points that to keep in mind before you allow public comment. The tax ordinance to be approved by the voters, this ordinance does not apply to patients or providers. I repeat, the ordinance does not apply to patients and providers. Number 2, you need 4/5 vote because it's a tax. You have, even if it's going to go to the voters, you still have to pass this by 4/5 vote. If there's no 4/5 vote, it won't go to the voters. Number 3, there'll probably be comments about the numbers, the figures. How we arrived at those figures is attorney work product. We're not going to get into that. We will say that we looked at a lot of studies, a lot of peer-reviewed studies, in conjunction with our instructions to basically tax at 7%, keep it in that ballpark, and that's what we've done. Segue. So if there's going to be any changes to the ordinance, if you're going to change anything substantively, we're going to have to come back and reintroduce, either at a special meeting or no later than next Tuesday, the 28th, if you want it on November. So if there's going to be any changes, substantive changes to numbers or anything else, we have to come back and reintroduce, and relatively quickly. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple ordinance. I think the English language is clear. Unless you have any more questions, that's all I have to say as far as preface.
Question? Council? Question. The 7% numbers and the numbers you actually reflected in this draft, where did we get those? Who made that determination?
Like I said, we looked at a lot of, without waiving our work product, I'm not going to tell you what we specifically looked at. We looked at other jurisdictions in other states that are doing taxation, and we looked at the board's instructions, which was to basically keep it around 7% at the end of the day.
So we did comparisons with other similar agencies in this situation.
I'm sorry?
We did similar contacts with other agencies in the
No, we didn't. I didn't contact other agencies.
We looked at their procedures then? We used their criteria to develop ours.
We looked at studies. We looked at professional studies looking at production calculations, and we tried to come up with an average that would work with the instructions given to us.
Within the marijuana industry?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
How are we going to determine pounds in the way of tax? I mean, do we have like a...
Because when
the imagination's kind of wild on that one.
Because when the state finally gets implements its tracking system, the state will know exactly who's producing what and the volumes and the weights, and we'll have actual data to base on. That's why we can't measure pounds right now, because there's no way to measure.
So we wouldn't be able to apply, even if this passes the ballot in November, we wouldn't be able to apply the volume type tax?
Until the state implements, correct.
So that part is moot until they do their part.
And just so that the board is aware, the way that it is drafted is that if it is placed on the ballot in November, it is passed, the initial tax would be on a per canopy area. Canopy area defined as with the urgency ordinance and what they are allowed to grow under their registration, which can be verified through the planning department. So that is where we would be able to validate what they are actually growing for the canopy portion, the canopy tax. And then once the track and trace program is up and running, then it would, and is implemented, then it would roll into a per pound tax, where then we would be able to clearly know the amount produced through the track and trace program.
So council, for all intent purposes, this year crop, if you will, is not going to be falling into this ordinance. We're looking at next year, right?
Yes, this year is unregulated. The ordinance would go into effect immediately upon passage by the voters, and it would apply to the next calendar year, 2017.
Next calendar year. Okay. Thank you.
Also for the board to know, it is drafted in the ordinance that the tax would be collected essentially similar to property taxes, where there's two installments, one in June and one in December. So everybody would know that the amount, they would know how much they were ultimately going to be taxed based on the square footage of the canopy or on how much they produced during the track and trace period, for the installment payment in June and then another installment payment in December.
So you're getting that up front, halfway.
But this is not truly the ordinance going to the ballot. As you said, this is...
This is the ordinance that would be going on the ballot. It is being introduced right now, and it would be brought back for adoption, and that's just the process for adopting ordinances. They have to be introduced first.
Well, another quick question, Council. Isn't this kind of putting the cart before the horse, because we haven't even got our ordinance settled yet? Are we doing this for future anticipation or what?
The board just approved the extension of the urgency ordinance, which is the regulatory program that is governing the cultivation of all cannabis within the county. So if this is approved, if it is placed on the ballot and approved, it would be taxing what the urgency ordinance or any future permanent ordinance is allowing for.
Council, and also too, this is, so it goes onto the ballot if approved here in November, and it's a general tax, so it's 50 plus 1 versus a 2/3.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? So I know that one of the issues may be, well, why are we even doing this? I don't really like taking chances. So if we have a ban, then it doesn't matter. But if we don't have a ban, then it matters. So for me, it's about thinking ahead a little bit and trying to put something in place to cover any aspect of what's going to go on. We don't know what that's going to look like. If there's ballot measure that goes on the ballot, either way, this won't matter one way, but it will matter another way. If we wait on it, then that's 1 year or more after that we will have to wait without any taxation on it at all, if it were to be legalized. And I don't think that we can afford to do that. So so for me, it's about just being prepared.
So as I understand it, if in November, the citizens of the state of California authorize recreational use of marijuana, this tax will apply to the non-medical marijuana sales, or is there something
Yes.
I'm missing?
Yes.
So we're hedging our bet and putting an insurance policy in.
It also applies to medical cannabis.
Oh, it does tie medical.
It applies to medical cannabis. What Mr. Sirius was referring to is it doesn't apply to personal grows or caregiver grows. So under the urgency ordinance, personal grows are up to 100 square feet and caregiver grows are up to 200 square feet. Anything in excess of 200 square feet is considered a commercial operation within this county. So that is what is going to be taxed, regardless if it's for medicinal purposes or for recreational purposes. It's for the commercial. It's for commercial cannabis.
Thank you, Council.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's proposed in this ordinance that I find peculiar is the CAO is involved in waiving penalties. And I kind of go back to being on the Planning Commission many years ago when the Planning Commission had an additional duty of being administrative law judges, basically. And they would bring the appeal of decisions by the code compliance officers to that board, and they would make the decisions. I guess I find it peculiar that we're giving the CAO another duty in this.
That's standard industry practice, sir. In any tax ordinance, in any jurisdiction, there's usually the tax collector does not have sole authority. You don't want one person having jurisdiction to decide disputes. So that's why it goes to the county administrative officer, and if someone's still aggrieved by this county administrative officer's decision, they can come to the Board of Supervisors for ultimate relief.
So it can be appealed?
Yes.
Okay, so the CAO's decision can be appealed to the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good with that.
My next question.
Thanks for clearing that up. Appreciate that.
Public comments, please.
Well, I'm for your county tax on everything, except for dried weight leaves. I trim my plants of sugar leaves all year long. Does this mean that I should put those in a bag, wait until November, and weigh all of those leaves and pay a $10 tax on them? Basically, they go into compost. They're not worth anything. They have no THC. They have no cannabinoids. They have no purpose other than generating photosynthesis for the plant to grow buds. Same with if you are planting and growing for the next generation, you have males. Those males are no good once their pollen is collected and used on some of the female plants. Should we save those males, save that pollen, wait, and maybe contaminate our whole crop with the pollen for the next generation? Then our seeds are no good. We have nothing for next year if we don't. We have to go down and buy clones from somebody or some other genetics from someplace else. The dried leaf just doesn't make any sense to me. The trim, yeah, it has something in it. It's the trim off the buds. It's the smaller, the little bitty stuff that just, maybe you could put it in a pipe, but it's worthless as far as commercial bud. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question for you. Did he say it was only a 7% tax for the state of California?
It's a 7% tax for the county.
It's for the county?
The state of California is anticipated, I think it's 15% from the state.
Okay, but for the county, why are we, if you go to the hardware store, you go to the grocery store, you go to a drugstore, you're paying 7.5% or 7.25%. Why is that less for them? You should be collecting whatever the percentage for that municipality should be the same as you would pay in any other store or hardware store or grocery store or whatever. So that's just a sense. So then everybody's on the same level of taxation.
I'm going to have to say that I understand what you're saying, and I had a hard time wrapping my arms around that also.
Yeah.
Legitimately, and stop me if I'm wrong, this is not a sales tax, though. And there are other fees.
Well, I understand that, but also the profit margin's much higher for them per plant than it is for me per cow.
Right. Did you read the other fees that are associated with it?
Yeah, I just heard them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
really
that's still, the profit margin is much, much, much higher.
No argument, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to clarify, this is an excise tax, not a sales tax.
So they'll pay a sales tax and the excise tax.
Potentially, yes.
Is that correct, Counsel?
This is an excise
Sales
tax.
tax plus an excise tax.
This has nothing to do with the sales tax. This is only about an excise tax.
Robert Schufelt. I think that we really need to pass a tax on this. The county needs money, and as an insurance policy, as it's been said, that's the smart thing to do, to get a tax in place no matter how you feel about how everything is. But I have some constructive criticisms and maybe a question. If the goal is to tax everything kind of equally at 7%, it would seem like outdoor and mixed light should be taxed differently, because one is way more productive. And so it seems hard that they would be taxed at the same rate and both be ending up around 7%. I think that outdoor should be taxed at $1 a square foot. Also, because it's based on canopy size, I would like to restate that the way the county is saying in the urgency ordinance, which we can't change, but maybe we could have an enforcement thing about it, canopy area is defined kind of weirdly in the urgency ordinance. It's not really, canopy area is a canopy area, and not your pathways, not your roadways, not your other things that aren't covered with canopy. The right way to measure canopy usually is with like a leaf area kind of thing, which wouldn't be your roadway. If you have like a 12-foot row, it seems like you're incentivizing strange growth practices with the way you measure canopy. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, Board. Donald Lyons. Sorry for my appearance. I had to leave work to come here. Registered voter, cannabis grower, very pro-tax. I have to agree with the other gentleman. Per canopy space just doesn't seem logical. It's almost like taxation without representation. I mean, a lot of the growers here want tax, but it just seems like we could communicate with the growers on what would be the best way to tax us on production level. Maybe if everything's going to be tracked and numbered, there should be maybe the tax should come from where the distribution center is set up. I mean, we could pay our tax based on what we give to the distribution center to be distributed, not on our canopy space, because like the couple gentlemen before mentioned, we don't get to use everything that we grow for commercial production. A lot of it does get thrown away. A lot of stuff that we wouldn't sell to anyone, and then we're going to get charged a tax on that based on this canopy cover. I would just urge the board to try to look at a way to do it on the tracking system, maybe from what each grower gets to the distribution center, because that's the way the state has it set up now. It's not like I can just take my product to a store and sell it. I'm actually have to go to a distribution center, have everything tested at the distribution center, and then it goes to a store. So it would seem you could tax me on what I give to the distribution center as a fair tax instead of everything inside my grow area that I don't even use. So thank you.
Bill McManus. A couple things I'd like to bring up on this tax issue. First of all was the manner in which the public received notice on this matter. At the 24-hour point, I pulled up the agenda, and it was like a 9:02, something like that. The agenda item popped up on the website for this meeting. Nowhere in that agenda item were many of the items that we ended up with. We have a full list by time of when various things plopped down on the agenda, and really what the effect was that the board and citizens did not really receive sufficient time to properly review this matter. Of course, you guys are smarter than me, so you probably did it really quick. It took me a lot longer, and I haven't got through it yet. Besides that, what we're looking at right now, I think, is the 800-pound gorilla in the room that no one seems to want to talk about, and that's AB 266, otherwise known as MRSA. It has a tax scheme in that. It appears as though the county would be moving to compliance with MRSA. And when you look at the tax scheme contained within MRSA, and I'm sure county council can explain this to you, you're not exactly in control of all the money that you receive via fines, taxes, or whatever. That all this money has to be sent to Sacramento, kept in a special fund by county, and that the state, through grants, will send money back to you, and the state is allowed to repay themselves the startup fee for 266, which is $20 million. So don't think that everything you tax is coming directly to the county. I don't know for sure, but I would not trust the state on that. Moving on a little bit, we hear from the growers that they want to pay, they want to come out of the shadows, they want to do all this. As just a very brief side note, why is the Calaveras County Planning Department hiding their information from us? Things that have always been public information. That is not coming out of the shadows. That is not transparency. So when do their pleas of trying to do it right and be good citizens, when does that come true? It hasn't yet. One other note that I'm reading from someone in our group who asked me to read this forum comes from, it's a response to a website or something on social media from the CCA. I've included the full text of that on the second page.
20 seconds.
Okay, don't have time. Thank you.
Louis Aguilar, District 1. Regarding the 22,000 square foot outdoor or indoor growing situation, all of us use pretty much about half of what we are paying for. For each row that we have, say I have 13 rows at 15 plants, falling under the 22,000 square feet. And each row, I have a 10-foot set between each of those rows. I'd just like you guys to kind of think about that as well. And that's all I have to say about that.
Justin Catalano, West Point. Just a few things. Are the farmers going to have to pay this tax before their harvest? What happens in the case of a natural disaster if they did have to pay this tax before harvest? If the product is not up to quality from the distribution center, are they still going to have to pay tax on product they can't use? And cannabis business is not allowed tax deductions on their overhead for production or distribution, but we're going to add a tax which possibly will create more expensive product for the consumer. That's it.
Aaron Elliott, District 4. I applaud you all for giving us some teeth. We got $750,000 of teeth that we don't have to send back now. We got more officers on the street and patrol cars. Our streets are safer now. Our kids are safer now. Now that we got this teeth, this nice grill, it's pretty nice, $750,000. Within this next week, we're going to pull another $500,000 if the rate keeps going on. We got a grill. We got gold, diamonds. Let's get some dancing shoes now, too. Let's fix the parks up. Let's keep going. Let's raise Calaveras, elevate the place, make it safer, keep our children educated, prosecute the guy the tweakers who's shooting the guy's cow. We have teeth to do that now. Chomp down on the crime. Get your dancing shoes. Thank you, guys.
Travis, I think this is pretty poorly thought out. If you want a 7% tax, I think you need to tax 7% on finished product. You're going to have plenty of people that lose their entire crop. I don't understand how that's going to work. And you're going to be asking for half of this up front, you know, somewhere in between there. So you could get your 7% and more if you charge the finished product. You could get your 7% would be far more per pound if you use these distribution centers, as someone before was talking about. So I really think this needs to be a real rethought.
Hi, Dina Morris. I just was curious if the taxation will include any kind of fee for roads in residential areas where these commercial grows are set up. The roads in residential areas are being used substantially more by large vehicles coming in and out, truck and trailers, water trucks, and other heavy equipment used in this industry. And I know that this is happening all over the county in residential areas where the roads are already not in great shape, and so now they're being destroyed by the additional burden that's taking place on these roads. So if you haven't thought about that road taxation fee, I'd strongly urge you to consider it now. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Fucci. I'd just like to say something about canopy tax. I am a commercial farmer in this area, and canopy tax can be a very flat way of doing it, but sometimes I have canopies that produce a pound every 9 square feet. Sometimes I have a canopy that only produces a pound every 25 square feet. So to do it based on canopy is basically going to be making it to where farmers who are very skilled are going to pay lower taxes per pound, and the farmers who are already struggling are going to pay more taxes per pound. Thank you.
Vicki Ranke, Angels Camp. I just wanted to make the comment that because of this gentleman that got up and talked about how all the money we're going to have in our county, just, you know, as a citizen of Calaveras County, it just makes me sick that this is how we're making our money. What's wrong with having a new business come into our county, which we've forced out? We don't have a Walmart here. We don't have a a target or something like that that generates. We continue to stop all development in our county. We've just stopped everything. And this makes me sick that this is how we're going to make our county better, by allowing marijuana to be grown here. Anyway, I just couldn't help but have to get up and say that again, because we are so backwards here that it's so frustrating. Now, it'd be okay maybe if there was some conversation about all these other things happening to bring money to our county that are something we would want. But anyway, I just wanted to make that comment.
Gina Gonzalez, Angels Camp. I can tell you firsthand that I was a grower and a dealer in my younger years. And I happen to know, as these guys all know, you can grow very good bud on a short stack. It happens. So like he said, the canopy tax, you guys are losing money. If you're going to tax it, you guys should be evaluating the plants, because I can tell you that there can be a lot of volume in a little area. Just thought I'd tell you.
Rachel Healy-Wallace. I'm here listening to all these issues and canopy and size and bud and all that. Who's going to regulate all this? Do we have enough code enforcement or law enforcement to go and find out if this pound is really good bud? Is this Sensimilia? Is this? Do we really have the resources to get in this? Is this drug money that we're going to take from the drug dealers, is this really going to help Calaveras County? Is this the direction as a mother that we want our children to go through, to have drug dealers all around selling something that causes early onset schizophrenia and bipolar in any child under the age of 24 years old on a developing brain? Are we really that low that we're so desperate in Calaveras County that we are allowing the illegal, the cartels, all the wrong things up into Calaveras County? 7 shootings, all on marijuana grows. Murders. How much is a murder for the defense attorney for the guy who shot the other guy? Do we have the $1 million to pay for the murder trial on this? You're trying to think of this to be a get-rich-quick scheme, and it's going to kill us. And I'm telling you right now, if we allow Calaveras to be Cannabis Calaveras, and we allow the dope dealers up here, and they're coming up in groves, 152, plus another guy said another 50 applications came in, that's a lot. That is a lot. Do we really want to live with ourselves? As a mother in Calaveras County and a former police officer in Calaveras County, I'm telling you, this is not the way for us to make money and to get us out of the hole. You already hear all the problems. How are we going to regulate it? How are we going to get law enforcement to deal with this? Please join Mike Oliveira. I challenge all of you to not make this the dope dealing county of the Bay Area. Please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle, District 4. I want to thank you all for your time and efforts and opportunity for this. We are writing the history books right now, and you guys are doing the right steps for AB 266, for MRSA. Thank you. The tax is a little weird, but I am all for tax me. I will give you money. Let's get these schools going. Please, let's get these parks going. And I am not a dope grower. I'm not a dope dealer or drug dealer. This is my profession. Thank you.
Kaz Tomaszewski, Calaveras Cannabis Alliance. So to be clear to everyone in the room, what is being voted on today is to put something on the ballot. This is going to the people, as many of the people in this room has asked for. If the people do not want this, they can vote it down. This is simply giving the people the option, which I feel like all of us agree is the right way to go. In regards to it being a canopy tax, we've heard some comments about how it may be poorly fitting because it might not be accurately scaled to actual production. We've heard that from the pro and the anti side. That is correct. No one loves the canopy tax. The canopy tax is necessary because a yield tax the infrastructure and the administration required to count those pounds, the county doesn't have a shot at that. We can't really do that here until we can piggyback on the state system of counting those pounds. And so I believe that the canopy tax is meant to be a Band-Aid, a temporary thing to get through. That is going to be loosely scaled to yield as good as the county could get. It's going to be a little bit hard on some growers who have bad production years. It's also, there's going to be people on the other side that feel like maybe, people aren't going to be honest about reporting their canopy. Well, that's why we have inspections. A couple of technical points, things have been raised. So in the ordinance it says certain tax on dry leaf and trim. For us industry folks, leaf means the fan leaf on the plant, which has absolutely no market value. It has no active ingredients, that sort of thing. Trim to us, that word means the very small leaf that comes directly off the bud that does have market value. So I think there's some growers that are concerned about the word leaf being in there because we do not sell that. It does not have value. It is simply the trim for us. If you have a different legal definition but mean the same thing, then we're all good on the same page. There's some other comments about ancillary space, what is defined in a lot of studies as ancillary space. So within a canopy area, maybe I have roads and aisles that don't actually have canopy over them. A lot of the numbers that were discussed, I believe, in the studies that were looked at by the county to basically were compensated for ancillary space, and the tax being proposed has taken into account that up to 50% of the area of the canopy might be include space that is used for walkways or machinery, etc.
30 seconds.
In regards to crop loss compensation, that is another thing that I believe is roughly built into this, and it is not comfortable for us. If you have a bad year, you're going to have to look ahead and set aside those funds. But it's kind of the thing where if you look at this per square foot canopy tax over a 3 to 5 year period, including, good and bad years, that sort of thing, that it should average out to be about the target that the county is looking for. The last comment we've heard is there's some complaints about the difference in the per pound tax between indoor and outdoor. That indoor may have different production costs, that sort of thing. That argument may be valid. However, if the county continues with this, we will support it, and we thank you for the time. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Morse again. This is not something that I've written. This is another resident and.
Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, another resident asked that this be read. They weren't able to be here today. It said, paying tax dollars to the county would give us our first immediately quantifiable and irrefutable economic contribution to the county, ending the argument once and for all as to what cannabis can offer the community. This means that the very slight opening of a very large suitcase of cash as the only deal in cash that gets thrown into the county pot as growers' fees and sales taxes should set them up as the dominant industry in the county, proven by this next phrase, and most likely set us up as the largest single contributor to the local tax base. This is the beginning of the unfriendly takeover, as the dominant tax base will definitely vote as a block and only allow more and more pot-friendly regulations. The value of this contribution is incentivizing support from our government, and community cannot be overstated. This is a blatant statement saying once we incentivize the government employees that matter, we own them. And if they don't vote with us, they leave the cartel.
Any other public comments?
Hello, Mark Bolger, Mountain Ranch. It was stated earlier that we have an 800-pound gorilla in the room. I'd like to talk about the 800 pounds that I hope every legal cannabis farmer gets off their half acre this year in Calaveras County. And I don't mean that to be flippant at all. We've got a very viable industry here. I agree with other comments that the canopy tax is not perfect. But we don't have another option right now. We need a taxation model. That's the best thing we've got going. I think that although we know the state of California doesn't always move as swiftly as we would like, they've got a very large incentive to get their track and trace program up as soon as possible. If they have that up by 2018, we could be looking at only next year and possibly part of the following year having the canopy tax and then having a production tax that is based on per pound production. I think that's the end goal for everybody. Again, the canopy tax isn't perfect, but it's a step in the right direction, and our county needs this money. This isn't a new industry. Production of cannabis has been going on here for decades. Now we've got a chance to harness the potential. I would urge every one of you to vote yes for putting this on the ballot and letting the people decide our county's future. Thank you.
Larry Bridges, live in San Andreas, California. I just wanted to take a moment. This is the first opportunity that I've had to address the board since the last time we met on this issue in general. And I wanted to apologize to Supervisor Ponte for the cowardly and inappropriate personal attack that was made upon you. The people of this community do not support that opinion. Thank you.
Case forgot?
Sorry.
Any other public comments? You've actually spoken one time on this issue, sir.
Okay, I just want to know where the distribution centers are.
That's it.
And if they're being taxed at the distribution centers, who gets the money? If it's in another county.
Any other public comments on this item?
My name is Brad Wolfman, District 1. I believe in 2018, MRSA takes effect, and that's when the distribution centers will be open, and I believe that's when we all will be taxed on the pound. So for the growers that were concerned about that and other citizens that are concerned about that, it's right around the corner. This is a temporary deal for us to get money into the county prior to that, is what I believe. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? All right. Bring it back to the board. Board comments?
There was a comment mentioned that, I don't know if it can be clarified or not, in regards to the leaf, the trim. I don't know if there's more legal term to define it, or if that can be noted in the description.
Kat Somaszewski, Calaveras Campus Alliance.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see that.
Sorry. The only term we use is trim. When we use the word leaf, it's almost always means fan leaf, and a fan leaf is a non-trichome bearing structure of the plant. I don't know. I think the thing to do would be maybe to look to the state, the wordings they have used, just to be consistent. But so long as conceptually it is consistent, it may be what the county could do, put in its definition, is basically for any trichome bearing leaf, which essentially would clinch it.
When you say
it would be easy enough just to remove the word leaf.
I think that would be consistent with industry terminology, and from our side, it would look good.
The definition in the ordinance, we don't actually have a formal definition for leaf versus trim in the tax ordinance. So if it's your understanding, David, we can certainly remove the term leaf and it just be applied to trim, because that is the intent. The intention is for it to be on trim.
And if the county decides to bolster that definition, an easy distinction between the marketable and non-marketable leaf or trim is that it carries trichomes, which are basically the resin glands that hold the psychoactive and physiologically active compounds. So there could be a very ironclad definition constructed if that is required.
Isn't the leaf used to make hand lotion? Hemp? Value?
Anyways, I wanted to address three questions that came up. Somebody brought to your attention the issue of fundings for improving roads that are impacted. This is a general tax. It's a general tax. You can use the money for whatever the board pleases. So if the board feels that the roads are being impacted, it can direct most of the money that way. There was another question about when the tax takes effect. Yes, it would, if it passes this November, the first bills would go out in April, and the first installment would be due in May. So to the extent that there's an argument that that's unfair, well, at least everybody has noticed that they can prepare for that tax bill.
Hang on, David.
And then the other issue is the one of the natural disaster. That's why there's an appeal process. So there's an appeal process so that natural disasters can be dealt with and other things of that sort.
So I think there's a question on the first installment date that due.
The notice was going to be going out in May, due in June. Notice going out in November, due in December.
All right.
So someone pays taxes on a 22,000 square foot grill, outdoor, $2 a square foot. The first dollar is due with the first installment. The second dollar is due with the second installment. That's what you're telling us. Okay. Now the second question that I have is I haven't seen either one of the initiatives that circulated throughout the communities. If an initiative has to do with the total picture, where it says something about taxation, and I don't know if these do, does that override?
None of the initiatives out there have anything to do with taxation.
Okay.
That's the board's prerogative.
Okay. Now my third thing is this written in respect of what the state passed?
It's written for what the board does. The fact, if the state acts, all the better. That helps us implement the ordinance. But the state doesn't have to do anything, but we would still be able to enforce this ordinance, as long as we have a local regulatory system.
And to the public, just so they're really clear on it, all this is a ballot qualification.
All this is letting the people decide if they want to tax the commercial cultivators.
Okay.
They can say yes, they can say no.
Okay.
And just also to piggyback on what David just indicated, this is in addition to a state tax. So there were some comments made during public comment about any fees or fines and taxes have to go to the state. That is for the state tax, not the county tax. This is an excise local tax. It is handled within the county.
It stays here.
Correct.
And until the state gets their act together, so to speak, the other taxes regarding the weight, et cetera, won't be levied until they're actually giving us the data to do that.
This tax would be converted into a per pound tax once we do the track and trace.
Okay.
If you're referring to the state tax where there was comments about what would be filtered back to the county, that is different. That is separate from this tax. That would be above and beyond this tax of what the county may ultimately get from the state.
And if there was a disaster, and this county is certainly not, unaware that disasters can happen, and they had paid their installments, the appeal process could allow them to recover that payment.
In theory.
In theory. Okay.
Kind of like a fire. Okay. One quick question, just so I'm clear, folks out in the public there. How do we determine the canopy size? By registration? Example.
So when a cultivator registers with the planning department, part of the registration process is to register the canopy that is in existence. So the canopy size under the urgency ordinance includes all of the rows between the plants. So it is the outermost area of the furthest plant. And so, yes, that canopy would, and what will be taxed or included in the canopy portion of the tax is the overall canopy that is registered. So that does include the area within the plants. It's not just the the plant itself.
And is there any verification process on that?
Certainly under the urgency ordinance, we have all of the inspections under the urgency ordinance where staff has to go and verify in validating the registrations, and through the program there are inspections.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay. No? The only thing I can say is, this is, like Mike put it, this is a safety guard for us. And, you know, so far what we've had is an illegal black market thing going on forever, and never been able to put any type of regulation on it or collect anything from it. We've spent a lot of money on it, and never have had the opportunity really to put the safeguards in place to be able to make sure that it is a better situation than what we currently have. And so on to this, you know, like it's been explained, it's a general tax. It goes to whatever the board wants to spend it on. So it could go to schools to, you know, put in, you know, better programs for kids. It could go to code enforcement officers, which we're, you know, for the past 3.5 years I've been on the board, we actually put a code enforcement officer position in place, and still have never been able to have one, because we can't keep the sheriffs here long enough to be able to have a code enforcement officer. So, you know, we haven't had that influence in the school. You know, so there are some things that this could do a lot of good for. You know, and there's always the other side. I mean, that's the way life is with everything. So, but at the very least, what it does is it puts something in place that sets us up for whatever happens. And I think that we owe our constituents at least that. So that's the way I feel about this tax. It needs to be taxed. My business is taxed. If I had a cash business, I'd have 10 of them. But I only have one, because I have business in the state of California and it's taxed, and barely one. So, can I have a motion, please?
Before we go there, Mr. Chair, what really is the difference of the next one we're voting on this?
The next
Should we vote on them together?
No, we have to vote on this one. This is just introducing and allowing this particular tax ballot measure to proceed to the next step for adoption. The other matter is an actual legal requirement that the election be called. Two separate items.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing is, this gives the voter in the county an opportunity to vote on this. That's important, right?
Yeah, that is.
So can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Ponte.
Second.
Second by Supervisor.
Chair, I just want to get clarification on what on the motion. Is it as requested, removing leaves and, or is it just as proposed?
Removing the leaves.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a motion by Supervisor Ponte, second by Supervisor Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, so item number 3 Diane?
Item number 3 is to introduce and waive reading of an ordinance calling a special election and consolidating it with the November 8, 2016 statewide presidential general election for the purpose of enabling the people of Calaveras County to vote on the question of whether a commercial cannabis cultivation tax of $2 per square foot of licensed outdoor/mixed light canopy area, increasing to a maximum of $45 per pound and $5 per square foot of licensed indoor canopy area, increasing to a maximum of $70 per pound, and a gross proceeds tax of 7% on the manufacturing of cultivated cannabis, and a gross proceeds tax of 7% on retail, medicinal, or legal cannabis storefronts, collectives, and dispensaries for general governmental purposes should be adopted.
This item is the accompanying item. This is the technical document that allows the board to officially ask Becky to put it on the November ballot. That's all it's doing. It's basically incorporating the other measure. This ordinance is instructing Becky to put it on the November ballot and allowing the people to vote. This is the introduction. The adoption will be on July the 12th.
Okay. Any public comments on this?
I have a question. Or go to
Bill McManus, excuse me. I think once again it's time for another reality check, just like with the ordinances, with the previous tax measure, with this, whatever it is. You've got to remember, you've got to read the words carefully. Words mean things. In that ordinance, they talk about taxing registered growers. Right now, 90% of the growing in this county is not registered. So how are you going to address that? If you're only going to get 10% compliance, all of these glowing thing, roads and schools and rainbows and everything else that you're going to be able to buy with it, you're not going to have the money. And as we ramp up trying to spend money to take care of 90% of the people who will not come out of the shadows, who will not comply with registration, who will not pay taxes, that's where the money is going to go. And so is the taxpayer and the county willing to fill in that donut hole, which is huge? That's the part that isn't going to come in. That's the part that you're talking about that isn't going to happen. Why do we know that? Because it hasn't happened yet. In 2 years, we've heard all the promises. All people are going to do this. The growers have said, we want to do that. Please tax us. And at every single point, they want out of the regulations. Why is this going to be any different? Do you think you're really going to collect all the tax that you're thinking of right now? Do you think it's going to be that easy? Or are you going to be out chasing people around for taxes twice a year? You know, by the time they get around to the second payment, they will have harvested and left the county and probably taken their dope with them and sold it someplace else, and that county will get the benefit of the taxes. Thank you.
Bill Wilson. Don't we have an aerial photograph that shows registered legal growers and shows non-registered illegal growers? Aren't we going to send the sheriff after those non-registered illegal growers? Thank you.
Hi, Cindy Finkus again. The tax thing. I don't intend on growing 22,000 square feet of marijuana. There's no way I could possibly use that by myself. And that is my only intent of growing, is for my own personal use. How can this tax be more scaled down to my size so that I can actually grow my own medication, not have to go back onto pills and be dependent on what everyone else has made choices of for me? It needs to, if I grow 10,000 square feet of canopy, if I grow 5,000 square feet of canopy, there needs to be a tax that fits my qualification. I still don't want to grow more than the 99 that I have been permitted to grow for all these past years. And you're forcing me to become a commercial grower when I don't want to be a commercial grower. And it's forcing me to be into a tax bracket or in a tax area that I can't afford. I'm not going to be able to afford any of my medication if any of this stuff happens to me. I'm not growing 22,000 square feet. We should only be charged on the amount of area that our plants actually use, and nothing beyond that. It doesn't make any sense. It's not fair. Some of these people have to put areas in between their plants. Mine are stacked right next to each other. They have no grow room because I've been backing it off for this buffer area and everything. I have literally one plant sitting on top of the other, on top of the other. I couldn't possibly grow 22,000 square feet of plants and then be able to afford my medication. You're making my medication cost me $100,000 in a year. Or do I pay $17 for 50 pills that are going to make me addicted to opiates? And the choices are there, but I can't live with them. I have to live on marijuana. I cannot live on opiates. I cannot live on the other drugs that promote you to go on to doing heroin and all those other things. Like I said, I'm not a drug dealer. This is only for my sole purpose. Paying taxes for 22,000 square feet, and if I'm only growing 5,000, that's ridiculous. And it's putting me into a bracket. It's making my pot $10,000 a pound instead of where it needs to be back down in a normal area of $900 to $1,000 a pound, where actually if anybody else needed to purchase it, they could. But with this taxes, I can't sell it, I can't keep it, I can't grow it, I'm going to die. All because of these choices that other people are making for me. I have no quality of life to look forward to anymore. And it's just going to cost me a fortune. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything. Thank you.
Once again, Louis Aguilar, District 1. I am a commercial grower, and I have absolutely no problem in paying your taxes, and I do not expect that any of the 105, 115 cultivators that have filed for their proper paperwork have any 150 have any intent on not following through with their promise. That's all I have to say.
Brad Wolfman, even if we get the suspected number that everybody's kind of hoping for, the 200 number to register, that's at 22,000 square feet, that's $8,800 the first year. We suspect it'll probably be closer to 300 people. That's over $13 million. This county is roughly $8 million in debt right now. So even if we just get the $2 million or the 200 people to sign up, that's $8.8 million. Seems to me we could kind of handle some business and get us out of a hole in the first year. Thank you.
Kaz Tomaszewski, Calaveras Cannabis Alliance. To clarify some things, so first off, this is a tax based on what you're actually growing, not a tax of the maximum allowed under your state license. So if you are a Class 3 state license, but you're only growing 12,000 square feet of canopy, that's what you get taxed on. In regards to the numbers, 10% versus 90%, we've currently got about 150 in there. We know that we're going to be ending somewhere between 250 and 500. That's going to be 25% to 50% of your total growers, and I think that math works out pretty well. In regards to just the cultivation tax, if you take about 300 registrants, an average of about 12,000 square feet per, which we think is kind of low, you're talking about $7 million as a conservative estimate for just cultivation tax, not including any of the other retail taxes related to other aspects of the industry. Not to mention what that incentivizing is going to do to clearing out some of the crime and also supporting local business. We do support putting it on the ballot. Thank you very much.
Hi, Dina Morris again. In this tax ordinance, does it spell out the penalties for non-payment? What happens if they don't pay? And does it?
Well, we're talking about a different ordinance. They're talking about the last ordinance.
So that's actually in the ordinance that spells that out, specifies that.
Okay.
This is not that.
Okay.
But your answer is yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? Board?
I just would like to have Becky clarify the process from this point out, if this should be approved.
If it's approved to go on the ballot, basically there'll be a time period for arguments and then rebuttals to those arguments. So I know there's a lot of question about timelines this morning. And just to clarify, the drop dead deadline to get anything on the November ballot would be July 22nd. However, that doesn't allow for board meeting time or anything like that. So our deadline in our office we made was get everything on by July 12th, which is an actual board meeting date. So our deadlines to our office were everything needed to be approved by July 1, which still pushes the board clerk into getting our items on rather quickly, rather than the normal date. So the deadline for getting anything on the November ballot was July 12th, and that was just to allow for meeting time and then to allow for the argument period, which is 10 days, and another rebuttal argument period, which is another 10 days. And then that allows us to get everything on the ballot and to the print so that we can start mailing ballots out 60 days prior to the election. So in reality, this might seem like a far period out, but all overseas voters are required to receive their ballots by 60 days, and if we don't get everything approved timely, we're not getting their ballots to them as we're required to. So,
when you mention rebuttal, can individuals rebuttal, or does it have to be an organized committee, a registered committee with?
A board member could rebuttal, an individual could rebuttal, a committee. However, there's only allowed so many, so if we get multiple, only one will be chosen to be put in the sample ballot pamphlet, and that's same for the arguments and the rebuttal. So if we end up getting many, we have to pick which ones go in the sample ballot pamphlet.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other board comments? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Wright, second by Supervisor Bonte. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-1.
I just want to also remind the board that all of these actions were introductions of both of the ordinances. And so, as you know, with ordinances, they have to come back to the board for adoption. So both of these ordinances, and we anticipate being on the agenda for the 12th for board to act.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anything else from staff? Anything from the board?
I have. We previously discussed pulling the board for looking into the initiative being placed as a board recommendation. I'd like to pull the board if there'd be any interest in setting an agendized item to discuss that.
I would say yes. You have 3,500 voters that signed a petition. They deserve to be heard.
I just want to remind you that it is not about that initiative. What we would be polling is whether we would be doing a county initiative.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand.
I'm not interested. I have been for the regulation of cannabis, commercial cannabis, and supportive patients being able to do their thing. And I'm most comfortable with the ordinance we have before us. If there's an initiative from the people that comes forward and elections office says it's on the up and up and legal, then so be it. But from the board's perspective, we've spent an awful lot of time on this issue, many public meetings, hours of public testimony, and we are pursuing an ordinance. We have the urgency ordinance in place. We are pursuing the EIR, and the county is moving in that direction with many resources, and that's my position.
Yeah, I would second that.
So, again, it comes down to me.
Well, I could have gone last.
That's all right, it doesn't matter, it still comes down to me. And so, I feel like the public has a chance to bring their initiative to the ballot, and they should do that. I feel like if we intervene in that, then we're making that decision. And I believe that for a public ballot initiative, it should be public. So what I am trying to do is make sure that we take care of a problem that exists in the county. I'm not interested in dividing the county. I'm interested in taking care of a problem that exists in the county. And so I am not interested in doing a board initiative.
Settles that. We are adjourned.
How are you?